Does like a beginner mean like we feel like a beginner because there's always so much to learn? Or does a beginner mean, we actually started not too long ago? You've been training for 5 years. Awesome. Awesome. So you've been training for 5 years and just started yoga. And how are you finding that's helping you? Does it feel good yet? Or does it feel like it's still stiff and working on it? Oh, you've never done yoga. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, you know what? We can try out, let me move this. We can try out a stretch for you. I actually have a link in this video, 10 free videos. But you can try a couple stretches, and why I like the yoga so much is one of my favorite parts is if you think about your jiu-jitsu, okay, so you've been training for 5 years, you've been training for a long time. If you think about jiu-jitsu, we're in the guard. The hips are bent and the knees are bent. We're here so often, hips and knees bent. Then you go into side control, hips and knees bent, mount, hips and knees bent, like all the time. Sometimes if you go to a standing guard break, they won't be bent, but most of the time they're bent. And the goal of the yoga is to balance that, right? So we're gonna move to lunges. They're called like low lunges, where we're balancing that. Now the hip is straight, because if it gets too tight, the body starts to it can cause more problems for future selves, but the body just starts to close up and get too tight, just like what happened to David Goggins. No, it's really important to balance that. You got to have both sides of things for really good performance. So hi, Michael. Lower back pain from BJJ. Welcome. I want to say welcome to the lower back. When are you feeling it, Michael? Give me some more information. Are you feeling it? Are you feeling it during training? Are you feeling it after training? When are you feeling it? And my guess is that poor lower back, all of our poor lower backs, it's probably because we put so much stress on it in training in a really big way. One of my favorite ones with that lower back, like I'm waiting for more information from you, but one of my favorite ones for the lower back is the knees above the hips. And you know what? Just drop them to the side. Just drop them to the side. Reach the top arm up and behind. So that's really, really nice for the lower back. It's a spinal twist. So this can feel really nice. Sometimes, again, going back to what I was talking about before, oh yeah, you know what? You're sitting mostly during the day. And so my next thought, so that spinal twist would be really nice, but my next thought is you're sitting most of the day, so the hips are in flexion, sitting like this, and then we go to jiu-jitsu and it's the same thing. So there's a ton of things that be going on because the body's a machine, but what I'm wondering is the hips, the hip flexors can become incredibly tight and the quads can become incredibly tight, and that'll actually pull the pelvis like out of alignment a bit. So you need to do some work just around that, and even 1 or 2 classes you'll start to feel better. And obviously it's all of yoga to keep training, but to help with that, and same thing for those hamstrings. Those hamstrings can get really tight too. So put your favorite leg forward. This is just a really simple one. Back knee, use the foot to pull the knee back. I call it a reverse shrimp for the foot. There we are. And allow the hip to drop towards the ground. We're not going to stay here, like this is number 1. Then walk the hands back to straighten or almost straighten that front leg. So kind of do a tester of this and see how that feels. My bet is your hamstring is probably tight too, and that can also affect it. So this is called the half splits. It feels a lot better than the name. The name sounds like it's kind of painful. So this is a really nice one to stretch the front of the hips and the back of the hips. That's really good. Or the next one, which I like for the front of the hips even more, is sitting up and pulling your hips to ribs. They may never touch. Maybe one day they will. But pulling the hips to ribs, and and pretty much engaging your butt and pushing it forward, then you'll feel a stretch through the front of the hip, then reaching that same arm up and over. So my guess is it's probably, let me move you up a bit, it's probably the hip flexors and the quads are getting really tight. Then you jump into jiu-jitsu, and the same thing's happening, as the same position is happening as when you're sitting all day. Jiu-jitsu and sitting all day. And I can appreciate that because I sit a lot of the day working, right? So you need to stretch that out. You need to stretch that out and balance it. I have, to start that, I put in the link of this video, free 10 videos, and you're gonna need the hips one. The very first one on there is hips, and you're gonna need that one. It's amazing. So it works like a machine. You need to loosen up the hips, you loosen up the hamstrings, you loosen up the quads. Man, that sounds like a lot of work, but you'll feel so good. So that's your answer, and we do have, we have an unreal program on the website. Back pain. I started with that one. That's one of the ones I started with. And it just moves through. Sebastian does, I think it's 5 videos, moves through a bunch of really great exercises for back pain because he had actually herniated discs in his back and he couldn't even put his socks on. So we know he didn't wear socks for a while in his life. Jump on there. And the most important thing is to do something about it. So a lot of people are like, oh, this hurts. Oh, this is pain. And I'm like, get on there and do something about it because you'll feel so much better. And it'll be the longevity of your jiu-jitsu too. Okay, so I'm just gonna scroll back. Any advice for neck pain? Where's the neck pain? So did you strain it when you were wrestling? Or is this from something previous? Or did you jump in there wrestling cold? Let me know a little bit more information on the back and on the neck pain because it's a pretty big one. A little more information. Okay, so keep sending your questions over, guys. I'm just going to scroll up and see what other questions I might have missed. And we have, you know what's so cool? We've been working on, your favorite submissions Americana. Oh, you savage. Yeah, it started during rolling. And is it in the front? Yeah, so my guess is you weren't probably warmed up for class. Or maybe you jumped into a round cold and you just tweak something, probably tweak something in the neck. So my first thing would be to prevent it. That'd be my first advice, and to do a proper warm-up. We have just unreal Yoga for BJJ warm-ups on the site, or just do 10 minutes. There's 10 and 10 link in here, you can do that one. And if you tweaked it, we do have a neck pain program in the rehab section of our site to make it feel better, but properly warm up. And then the next one is you can just honestly, depending on what side it's on for the neck, give you a quick stretch. Put your favorite hand on the ground, opposite hand, reach through, grab your elbow pit. I called it an elbow pit, yeah, I did. And then reach the right ear. So I have my right hand on the ground, right ear to right shoulder. And this might feel really nice. Do it both sides, because why not, on the good side and the bad side? So that might be able to help, and just try applying some heat. It might also relax the muscles. But jump on the website. We do have some really great warm-ups, and I'll tell you, it's worth it. It's worth the warm-ups. It's worth the $10 a month. It's worth the 10 minutes before class to do the warm-up. So keep sending over your questions, guys. Lots of questions. Keep sending them in. We can have a nice little chat about all of them. And I feel like it's Jeopardy and I'm winning. And the next one is our April course we're about 90% full for the Yoga for BJJ teacher training. And I'm the one that moves back and forth with everybody about it and talks to them. A lot of people have questions. But it's been really, really neat to see how many people are enrolled, but more importantly, what it's done for people. Even during lockdown, I had someone message me, it was so funny. They're like, I'm so fat, and I'm like, why do you say that? And they're like, because I'm doing the homework. But basically, as soon as people register, they get a ton of homework. And I actually have a lot of people doing it for self-development, which is amazing, because you learn, part of the homework is to do your own yoga practice. So it's like a push, right? To do the yoga practice. Then when you're doing the yoga practice, there's some really just fascinating lectures to read through and to learn. And those are discussed in the live training. So you get a bunch of this homework, and there's level 1, 2, and 3 of homework, however much people want to do. Then we have the live classes in April, and we're meeting for 2 weekends. And it's about three to 4 hours each day on Saturday and Sunday. And it's so cool. Like, it's not, the program is designed specifically like so people don't have to sit there and like just watch a screen. It's really interactive, lots of conversation, lots of moving, stuff like that. So we don't want to die and we're in front of a screen for longer. Oh, Dana's registered and so excited. I'm really excited too. So the meeting links are actually already in the private Facebook group. I already have them set up, and we'll be emailing them out too. So if you're a keener like I am, I always like have everything prepared. So yeah, the link's already in the Facebook group. You can even join on the Zoom meeting right now. I don't think anyone will be there, but you'll be really early. The coolest thing for me is seeing what it's done for people, where it's really helped them deepen the understanding, not only of yoga, but yoga, about how yoga helps with the jiu-jitsu. And it's like this dark funnel that doesn't stop. The more I learn, the more I'm like, the more I will never do jiu-jitsu without yoga again. Yoga for BJJ, and how it's just really, it's stuff like the sequences you learn, the curriculum you learn. It's just, you know, for lack of better words, you know, it's just no BS. It's like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how it's going to help. This is what we'll do. So that's really cool. Now, I have a question for you guys. So I had a really cool question from someone. I think it was last week. I didn't quite get to it, but tips for new instructors. And I thought that was a really great question because there's so many answers to it. So if you guys have any tips, I want you to chuck it in the chat, right? I want to know what you think too. But for me, I was really thinking about that question. So new instructors regarding jiu-jitsu or even yoga for BJJ, both of them. Tips for new instructors, I would say less is more. Less is more. That's a big thing I've learned. Like, I've been teaching, you know, jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai for 10 years, but that doesn't really mean much. Where people are like, I'm teaching for so long, but it's like, how do you teach? Do you teach well? So I would say less is more. Having a technique, taking it apart, dissecting it, because what have we got? Oh, because I had someone ask me why the screen's blacked out, but it's working from this side, so I think we're okay. Dissecting stuff, because I would plan things in my classes, especially jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu is very complex. And I'd be planning like this and this and this and this and this. And then by the end of the class, yeah, I put everything in here, but students didn't really remember a ton of it because it was so much. And so what I really learned is really being able to teach something is to understand something that's complicated and teach it in a simple way. And the neat thing about jiu-jitsu is there's layers. It can be simple, but when you get to know it, it moves into being more complicated. Like when you learn a technique, the mind learns it. Okay, I'm watching it. And then you do the technique. And then it's like, okay, now the body's starting to learn it. Then maybe you drill it or don't, but maybe you drill it. Okay, it's going into muscle memory. And then now you need to execute it in wrestling, but it's like a web. So everything else, the setup of it, the execution of it, maybe you do a fake to make someone think you're doing something else to get that. So it's like maybe you catch someone. So it's like a web of being able to execute that technique. Then once you have that, now you got to try to do it maybe in a tournament. So there's so many different layers to it. And so for me, in my teaching, I was just like, okay, I'm teaching like these 4 techniques a class, these 5 techniques a class, but no one's really leaving with much just because there's too much information. So I actually I taught a drilling class and specifically for beginners, and we would dissect something. One of my favorites is we would dissect something from the guard, something really basic, maybe an armbar from the guard. Everyone needs to know how to do that. That's where you start, so you can do the armbar from 1,000 different places, right? In 1,000 different ways. We gotta know the basics first. So armbar from the guard. Then I would spend an entire class with that. An entire class We would do movements of the hips, and then we would look at the grips, why each grip is like this, and then we would drill it. And then I would go as far as doing so I would teach my drilling class, this one specifically, this theme, once a week. We would do it every Wednesday for a month. So I do month-long series. So now we've been drilling it. Now we are gonna add to it the left side, not so people can do the bad side necessarily, but so they have to really think about the concepts and transfer the concepts over to the other side. That's the only reason. Okay, why is this hand going here? And it's actually amazing how the left and right side of the body can be so different. So now once we have drilled just that arm bar, now, okay, we'll add a triangle to it, or whatever. We'll transition it to something different. And so when I started doing that, the classes, it's a cool reflection where if people like your classes and they're going to your classes, obviously that's subjective because sometimes, you might have a small school, or might be COVID and no one's showing up. But for me, in my academy, the classes got really big because people knew they were coming, they knew the schedule, they knew what we were working on, and they knew that they knew it wasn't overwhelming. They're taking this, leaving it, thinking about it, marinating it. So that was really, really cool. So less is more in instructing. That's just what I found from my personal experience. Question here, is it good to stretch in the sauna? Is it easier to get loose? Do you know what? It is not wrong to stretch in the sauna when you're super, super nice and warm. Sometimes, just something to be careful of, I haven't really run into this yet, but something you got to be careful of is if the muscles are really, really warm, you might stretch them a little bit too much, but if you're kind of hanging out in the sauna and just chilling, doing a hammy stretch, you're fine. You're totally fine. And it can actually feel really, really nice. But just be aware if you're totally stretching forward and you have your head to the knee and all that, and it's way too much, you might be pushing the muscles a little bit further than what they're capable of doing just because they're really warm. So there is a small place where you can get injured, but I haven't run into that. And that reminds me of people that have done Bikram yoga, yoga in the really hot room, and I didn't have a problem with it. But that's just something you have to be aware of, but I think you'll be okay. It's probably not like you're sitting in the sauna for 6 hours stretching. So great question. Thanks, Martin. And then, so that would be my first one with instructing, talking about that. And then the next one would be not to become complacent. So for new instructors, they're obviously new instructor and getting all excited and pumped up and, oh yeah, so I always interrupt myself. People make fun of me, but that's what I do. Yeah, the hamstring is my most stiff part, so I think we'll feel good. Yeah, you know what, Martin? If those hamstrings are really commonly tight, and if you're not going crazy, just chill, might feel good. Yeah, I think you'll be okay. Sore LCL, can yoga help me? I would say if it's an LCL to really, depending on the degree of it, if it's sore, you're probably okay to protect it. Maybe elevate it a little bit, bring the swelling, just because it sometimes feels really nice when you're sitting down, you put a pillow under it, elevate it a little bit. And it's probably sore. My guess is, did it happen during jiu-jitsu? And was it Delahiva guard? So maybe give me some more information there. And if it's sore, it probably means that the next hinge up are the hips. And if the hips are tight, that can affect the knees. So your answer is yes. And for that, you might want to work on, again, stretching the hips. So especially the outside of the hips tend to get really, really tight because we're always sitting like this, and we walk with the feet forward, and we sit with the feet forward, and we cook with the feet forward. And then we go into jiu-jitsu, and we're just crazy. Everything is just crazy and moving and going. So these muscles don't get a lot of strengthening or stretching, and then we ask them to do just a whole bunch of crazy stuff. So The answer is yeah, the yoga can definitely help you. And if it's not a tear, if it's just kind of sore, then I recommend jumping on the website and doing rehab yoga for, we have like a rehab programs with Rosie and jumping into that. Try that out. Obviously, you're not doctors. I spent my 10 years getting my Jiu-Jitsu black belt, not my doctor black belt, but go in there and see if that helps. And then when it feels better, start moving into the hip program. So in this video, I put a link and it's 10 free classes. Do the hips. And if that feels okay in your knee, like if the hips are loose, that'll help with the knees. And we move into deeper layers where you start stretching the quads and hamstrings because everything's connected. And if something is getting sore or tight or hurts, it means that some part of the machine isn't working properly or is too tight and something else is trying to compensate. Or maybe it's just something crazy that happened in jiu-jitsu. But again, if your hips are stiff, you can avoid it. You can start avoiding it. Pulled my leg too much when I was trying to hit triangle. Yeah. So you know what? So triangle. So it's probably just stiffness and it's probably super avoidable. And I think that this might sound crazy, but it might be a good thing that this happened in a way, because it's kind of like a warning being like, oh, okay, I need to change something or I need to adjust something. It doesn't have to be something big, but I need to do something. If that's happening when you're doing the triangle, it means that something isn't working. Or something needs to be adjusted, or something needs to be changed. So, because that shouldn't happen when you're popping up for a triangle. So yeah, everything that I just said stands. Start doing some yoga for hips. And the amazing thing about this is in the yoga and when you move into the flows, it actually really helps strengthen all the balance, the ligaments, the connective tissue. It helps with so many things. And I have found that my wrestling has gone up 110% because I'm used to being in those weird positions. I'm used to the movement with breathing. I'm used to all those things. So I found it really helped me. So your step one is to jump on the website and check out the rehab pain program with Rosie, only if it doesn't hurt. If it does, you might have to visit a physiotherapist or maybe just give it some time. And then step two, do the 10 and 10 hips program in the link here. And then step three is to start moving into the flows. You need them. You need to be stretching those hips to give yourself a lifelong jiu-jitsu career because knees are a very common problem. They are, but if we do it right, then we'll be okay. Do stretching and the cross training. Is it possible to overtrain your hip flexors? So, Greg, what's going on with your hip flexors? Are they just sore? Are they tight? Are they stiff? Are they everything? So what's going on with the hip flexors? And this might sound crazy, but are you sitting a lot during the day? Are you standing during the day? So how are they feeling? What are you doing a lot of during the day? And then are you doing lots of wrestling? So I'm going to try to connect these dots to see what's going on, and then maybe we can have some fun troubleshooting it. What is the best course to start with? I want something that will be challenging enough. So you know what, David, have you done a lot of yoga? Because there's a couple different ones. If you haven't done yoga, I recommend starting with the startup program, and that breaks apart the flows because you got to learn how to do an armbar before you jump into the rounds and do a bunch of wrestling. So it kind of breaks down the flows, 10-minute tutorial, 10-minute flow. Then once you move through that program, go into foundation week and less talk, more yoga. Okay, so do a little bit of homework. If you need it, take a peek if you need it. Then if you're feeling good, jump into foundation week, less talk, more yoga. They're just unreal and a lot of fun and great. If you can't make it to jiu-jitsu or if you want a recovery training day, that one's just amazing. So try that out and let me know how it goes. Okay, do you have a good exercise to get more, and I am getting your questions, guys, I just have a few here. Do you have a good exercise to get more flexible in the hip department, especially when you are bending forward? I tend to bend the upper back when I do the forward bend. Okay, yeah, you know what, Martin? This is really interesting. So there's kind of two questions. I'm going to address the second one first. You do Ashtanga yoga. Okay, you have to forward bend a lot. Adam actually does a lot of, he's working through that program. I have a different program, but he's doing that too, so he'd be a good person to ask. But pressure on the lower back. So pressure on the lower back. For me, I find that pressure in that lower back is due a lot to the up. It's really easy to compress the lower back in that up dog. So to strengthen it, maybe for a while, and to strengthen cross train, just a suggestion, you could try this. But what I really find that I like is on the ground, moving into strengthening here. So the locust sky, or sorry, the skydiver, that's what I call it. But, and then you can go into, yes, that's locust, or you can go into cobra, hands by the shoulders, and just lifting and pulling up. So that's less compression on the lower back. Because I find sometimes when people go up into the up dog, everything dumps into the lower backs and compresses it. So just find a different option for a while and see how something like this feels. Because then it's allowed to strengthen independently without that compression. It's just really natural. And another one which might be really nice is Sphinx pose. This is a really gentle back bend, using the elbows and shoulders to pull yourself up. So that can be really, really nice too. And then, so make sure you balance that, right? Because forward folding is good, but as we know that too much of anything isn't a good thing. Okay, more flexible in the hip department. So I tend to bend the upper back when I do the forward bend. So forward bend, boom, yeah, and you would like the back to be open, but then you're hinging forward and you're like, oh, it's so tight. So you know what, this can be a couple different things, but I would almost say this might be hamstrings too. So it's not wrong to bend the back in the forward fold. It's not, whether it's a standing or sitting forward fold, it's not wrong. It's just different, right? It's just different whether the back is straight or the back is bent. It's not wrong. And so one of my favorite ones, though, I'll tell you, is sitting forward fold, knees bent, give yourself a big hug, rest the head, stay here 10 minutes, 15 minutes in the evening. When you're done, move out of this really slowly, because he's been there for a long time. Roll back, either neutral spine, feet on the ground, or it feels really nice to pull the knees into the chest. So that will, if your goal is to do the forward fold, yeah, I can't even quite do it yet because I keep training, and then my flexibility goes out the window. So it's always a battle, isn't it, to keep both of them. It's better than it used to. So if your goal is to have a straight back, boom, head faces the knees, here. That was actually from Sebastian, because his head now faces the knees, and also having respect that it could be the way the body is, where some bodies don't really like for the head to face the knees, but I think that there's, of course, room for improvement, right, to get in there. And then next one, really stretch out those hamstrings too. Lots of hamstring stuff in the Yoga for BJJ is a hamstring video. Oh, Sebastian's 60-minute ones are unreal. Hamstrings, and then hips. One of my favorite stretches for the hips, I'm not gonna lie. 90-90 in both legs, and just each elbow on each side of the knee. I did my live class yesterday. Some amazing hip stretches in that one. Okay. Oh, we got someone from Brazil. Unreal. Okay, so let me see, what else have we got? Small right upper back pain. So Stefan, you have a lack of flexion in the knee. What do you recommend? So when are you noticing this as a problem? Are you noticing this as a problem during wrestling? Are you noticing this as a problem? Have a good sauna, Martin. Have a good sauna. When are you noticing this as a problem with the lack of flexion? Because if you think about is it like during yoga that it's bothering you? And my next question is, so give me some more information, or is it during jiu-jitsu? But really, if it's bugging you during jiu-jitsu, how often do we have those knees totally flexed? It's not super common where we'll be like Sitting on, yeah, sometimes in the guard, yeah, we'll have the knees totally flexed, but if you're going to do like, or you can move to like standing guard breaks and moving. So let me know, like when is it bothering you? Okay. So you know what, Stefan, for that one, I would say I'm not entirely sure how to answer that one because I am not. Compression poses, because I've had a meniscus surgery where my leg really didn't like the flexion. It didn't like doing it and it couldn't do it after the surgery. So obviously yours is different. But what I did is I worked on just overall flexibility of the knee, and over time it got better. But I would say for that one, ask a physiotherapist. You know, maybe you might even be able to jump on Reddit or something like that. Sometimes they have free physio advice, but that one's a bit out of my scope. But what I found, what I can help with is, or actually, yeah, physio. I feel like a physio might know a bit more than a doctor about that because they specialize, especially a sports physiotherapist. But when I would move into wrestling, I kind of avoided. I was able to avoid stuff with total flexion, and I just did yoga. I did stretching. I made sure to stretch out those quads. I made to stretch out the outside of the hips, stuff like that. And then, so full compression hurts, like maybe even for the quads. What you can try is, let me know if this bugs it. I'm gonna go this side, but you can try for the quads, just stretching here. So that's not quite full flexion. With the back hip, pull the hip to rib, pull that hip to rib, engage the butt, and pull that leg back. So it's not full flexion, but honestly, I'm kind of just shooting ideas. Yeah, you'll have to ask a professional in that. I'm sorry, wish I could help you a little bit more. So small right upper back pain for a couple months. Do you know what? Lewis, jump into my class from yesterday. It's under the new releases. So go on the website and just go down. And what I did in that class is a lot of, thanks Stefan, is a lot of side stretches, but long side stretches. And what that did is, I actually had one of my friends did it. He owns a school and he's a black belt and owns a school in Calgary, I think. And he's had back pain through his side and back for a long time. And what the long side stretches do is they really release all the muscles in between the ribs. So try my class from yesterday. And because that's not a super easy answer, but you can try that, you know, arms up, over. And another option is go jump on our rehab programs and see if there's rehab for back pain in there. So sometimes it's not like one thing. We'll give you a suggestion of a few things. Always like a little bit more is better, and then try it and see what works, see what helps. Okay, so try those out before it gets to be more. All right, awesome. So, you know what, everybody? That's what we got for today. Just tons of really, really great questions, and it was super fun hanging out with you guys. And I will see you next time. I'm getting so good at my tech stuff.